Hi, everybody. It's March 6th, 2024. It's the Recruiting Animal Show, and I'm here with Tommy Pistachio Elascio, okay? Palermo Rhodes. He's a fantastic recruiter. And I will say, before I introduce this segment of the show, that you'll see yourself. I'm glad he's here. The proof is he's a very engaging personality. He's smart. He's quick-witted. He's fun to talk to. Okay, there you go. But I watched one of his YouTube shorts this week, okay, on how he builds rapport. And this is what he said. And you can interrupt me at any point, okay? Everybody says I misrepresent them. Just you feel free. Tommy says, well, I'll call someone up to recruit him or her. While I'm looking at their LinkedIn profile, I'll say, hey, wait a second. I can't talk to you. You're in Pittsburgh. I'm a Ravens fan, right? What do I want to help a guy like that for? And they'll start laughing. He said, or I'll talk about rugby as if I play rugby, or lacrosse as if I know something about lacrosse. Or
you spelled it wrong.
Yeah, big deal. Okay. It used to be called the national sport of Canada. Okay. Or skiing or surfing, if you can pull that out of a person. I'll do anything to make a connection outside of I'm trying to sell you something, or I'm trying to sell you a job. He says, you have to. Let me finish.
Go ahead. You still can interrupt, but okay, fine. Go ahead.
You got to be conversational, Tommy says. You have to understand how to relate with them. Go ahead. Now you.
It wasn't that I wasn't selling them the job. It was that when you do the conversational thing, it takes away that you're selling the job. I'm always selling the job, but the conversational type of getting into it to kind of build that rapport kind of removes some of that salesmanship or used car salesman attitude they feel towards recruiters. That's what I'm trying to do. Like, you can look, there's nothing wrong with jumping right into, hey, my name's Tom Elascio. I know you're busy. I'll be brief. I got a great opportunity, blah, 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 blah. Right? You can absolutely do that. But if you can find something quickly right off the cuff to engage with them that's not about the job, it makes it a little bit easier. And it makes it more real. That you're a real person and not just some sales guy.
Well, you just confessed to that it's all fake.
Yeah. I mean, it's not that it's fake, right? I mean, I truly if somebody wants to talk to me about the Ravens or rugby or skiing or surfing or whatever, I get excited about it. Like, there was a candidate that I placed and we were in the offer stages and everything. And we were talking about getting him a laptop or a computer. And he told me that he had 2 monitors. And I go, oh, you have 2 monitors. Let me show you my rig. And he just went nuts. He wanted to talk about my setup and how I did it and everything. And it made this connection between him and I even stronger. That I could ask what I consider to be more pointed questions to make sure he doesn't take a counteroffer, that he's really going to take the job, right? Like, it made a connection between us. I don't know how to describe it, but that changed the way that we were talking to one another completely changed after I sent him the picture of my setup.
Okay, and so you think he would have been but the thing is, it was a good position for him, right?
Oh, yeah. I'm not saying that.
Well, okay, just hypothetically, we don't know for sure, but let's say you hadn't had this friendly conversation. You think that would have made a difference in his receptivity?
Probably not, but I would have been much more concerned about counteroffer, because the biggest issue with this is from the first moment that I spoke to him, all the way through the process, I was just worried about counteroffer, because I couldn't really pull out of him any other reason to leave besides money. I finally did, and I was worried the entire time. So every little bit that I could make it better, in my opinion, helped. Would it change anything? I have no idea, but who knows?
Okay, I was watching another YouTube short, and it's these funny guys. I don't know, Chinese guys, Chinese Americans. They sit around a table and shoot the shit like we do. And I should have said shoot the breeze. Sorry, everybody. Okay. Really, I don't like that shit. I'm not talking shit. I'm talking breeze. Okay. Anyway, no, really. But he said so. But they're lighthearted. That's my point. He said when he gets an Uber driver or a delivery person who's Chinese, he doesn't let them know that he speaks Chinese because he wants to keep a professional distance from people. Okay. He doesn't want them, if they know he's Chinese, they'll feel like his buddy and they'll make assumptions about what they can do. Right. It's less strict. And I have to tell you, it makes sense to me. He says he's doing the opposite of what he says, don't look for commonalities. Just, you're doing business. Okay. Now, everybody is with you on this, I bet. But I'm with him.
I guess, I look back on, it's an old comment. People don't care how much you know till they know how much you care. And you can spin that however you want. But, people like to do business with people that they like. Right? I do business with people in general. If I can't find someone I like, I try and find someone I tolerate. But I'll tend to go to a restaurant more if I like the people. I'll tend to use a HVA service. The guys that just did my HVAC, I really like both of those guys. They were awesome. So I will continue to call them, even though they're a little more expensive.
That's a little different. That's a little different than a recruiter calling up and offering you something good. That's different because here we've got the job, or it's right in their face, and they don't have to spend a lot of time with you once they get the job. If they're going to work, I always say they should like the people they're going to spend 8 hours a day with, but they don't have to like you. Okay,
they don't have to like me, but
You're
I would
just
prefer.
A delivery boy.
I would prefer. Let me ask you a question: if I get into a car in an Uber and the dude's a white guy like me, should I not speak to him in English? Because he's going to assume things. That doesn't make any fucking sense to me, dude.
That's a ridiculous comparison. Okay, that was ridiculous.
Or if Ernie gets into a car with a guy who's Hispanic, he shouldn't speak Spanish to him. I don't even get that thing. That's that's called being nice. It's being conversational. It's being a friggin' human being.
Okay.
I engage every Uber driver, man. My wife looks at me because what I do for a living, I'm a talker, right? So I get in the Uber. I know by the time I'm out of the Uber, I know the guy's married, got kids, everything. I love talking to people.
Okay, but hold on. We've talked here many a time that introverted recruiters can be very successful. Now, here's the thing. Introverted doesn't mean shy. It doesn't mean unfriendly. It means they don't like talking that much, okay? So would you say that introverted recruiters could also follow this model of having fun conversations, or is it really only for somebody like you?
It's an interesting question. I would think that my wife's an introvert, right? She's very close to the vest. She's conservative. She's not real talkative, right? But I think if she was to engage with someone in a very commonality, like for example, my wife's an equestrian. So if she was a recruiter and she started talking to someone and they saw that they had horses, that would be such a commonality between the two of them that my wife would absolutely engage about that. But she's not going to talk about stuff like I'll bring up. I don't watch football. I can't name but one Ravens player, like the black quarterback. Can't remember his name now. I don't watch football, but I know that Ravens and Steelers are arch enemies. I don't know anything about college football, but I know if you call a kid from South Carolina and bring up Auburn, he's gonna that's gonna be something to talk about. So there are certain I'll do that with everything. Where my wife might only do it with equestrian. Does that make sense?
Tim Cook likes Auburn football. Okay, just in case you ever get a chance to work with Apple.
Tim Apple.
Yeah. Okay, so actually, how does your wife put up with you since you're so chatty?
I'm good looking.
No, that's not what I said.
I have a great personality. I don't know what to tell you.
If you go to a restaurant, you talked about if you're sitting across the table from someone who doesn't like chatting that much, and you like chatting like I do, okay, it's kind of frustrating. You're pissing them off because you're talking and they don't want to talk.
Again, you're talking introverts aren't the type of people to talk to anyone, but they'll talk to people that they like.
Close to. Okay.
Right. So when my wife and I were first dating, right, she wanted to talk to me about stuff that she liked. That's fine because we were in an intimate conversation. She's not the type of person who's going to strike up conversations in the grocery line like I do. Right. That to me is an introvert. She's not shy. She just doesn't, everywhere I go.
You said your daughter is a fantastic recruiter, or is it just source? Yeah. Is she like you or like your wife?
Oh yeah, exactly like me.
Okay. So do you know anybody who's like your wife who's also a great recruiter? No. Okay.
Well,
No.
I mean,
No.
you know, like
That's
you
a
know, I know
no.
a lot of recruiters.
He's got us now. He's thinking. He doesn't know.
I'd have to think about that. I mean, most recruiters I know are like me, but there are recruiters that I know that are not as obnoxious. Like I'm obnoxious, right? So there's a lot of recruiters I talk to that aren't nearly as obnoxious as me.
Okay. Here's an odd question. Black and white photos. If someone puts a black and white photo on LinkedIn profile, do you think that affects people differently than if it's color? This is a real question. Okay.
No, I in fact I had a black and white photo for a while.
Okay. I think
Yeah,
my
I mean,
photo's
like
black
I
and
don't
white.
even like
My photo's
that
black
would
and white. It was a color
don't
originally,
even-
and I
I
changed it so it'd be black and white.
you to me.
Okay. What about this one? This she said we had a lady one time bring a lucky rock to an interview, and she put it on the hiring manager's desk. You think that's a problem? It's better than a pet. It's better than a care animal.
I mean, I guess it would depend on the interview and the job, right? A sales job, yeah, that's something off the cuff that might get you the job.
Nothing to talk about. It's a conversation break.
I mean, it's definitely
Maybe it's a
conversation.
bad icebreaker. Okay.
For a PhD scientist, maybe not. I don't know. I mean, that's a weird one, man.
Okay. Okay. Here's an odd phrase. These are the easy questions. Manage
No,
you
wait a
out.
second. I got to go back to the rock thing. So they show up for the interview. They sit down. Hello, and she takes out a rock and but this is my lucky rock. Go ahead and ask your questions. Like that one doesn't even. I can't even.
It's better
Okay,
than a
go on to the
dog
next
or a cat or an otter that she carries around in her purse. Okay.
I mean, go on to the next one. That one's.
Okay. Manage you out. This is a phrase I never heard, but I saw it a few times today. It means they're going to fire you. I'm going to manage that person out. Have you ever heard that?
I've heard. No, I've never heard managed out. No.
Okay,
I mean,
there we go.
See
Something new. It's
down. I can see.
pathetic.
No,
Okay.
I've never heard of it.
He never heard about it. Okay, what about this? I won't say who wrote this. I started going through my my Facebook group to see what people had posted, what was posted in 2013, like 10 years ago. And lots of the issues were the same. But I came up with this one, and it was by a thought leader, in the corporate recruiting world, far beyond someone who would ever speak to me or appear on this show. Much too serious a fellow. But, I read an article by him, and he said, my fantastic hires were people I met and started to trust and like very quickly. They felt right. I could see passion, commitment, hard work, and intelligence in their eyes. When you spend a lot of time talking about what you want out of a job, I'm not interested. I want to know what you can do for me. I don't know how that second part follows, but that first part is what I'm interested in. Doesn't that sound like, somebody in your house is talking? It's not a problem. As long as it's not that jerk coming back with those videos.
Somebody walked by my office.
Okay, that's not a problem. What about that? He's saying there that he wants to work with people he likes and finds inspiring. Now, but isn't that usually what everyone says, especially in the corporate world? Hey, that's bias. That's bias.
Yeah, no. Everybody wants to work with people that they like. I mean, like, there's no doubt about that, right? I think his second comment of "I don't care what you want in the job. I want to know what you can do for me" is very old school. I think that has to be at equal footing, in terms of you have to sell the candidate. Like the client has to sell the candidate and the candidate has to sell to the client, right? They have to sell each other. The attitude of, I don't care, I'm not going to sell you the job. I want to hear what you do for me. That's a very old school way of thinking. So that's a little weird, but I do 100% believe that people want to work with people that they like, right? That's a cultural thing. It doesn't mean that you're only going to hire white Anglo-Saxon Protestants, but you are going to hire people that, are similar to you. And I don't mean skin color or gender. I mean just in the same type of stuff. Like, we're all alpha males, or we're all super outgoing, or we're all super introverted, or we all like to play chess, or something like, I'm kind of going off on a tangent, but
I know where you're going, and I agree with you. Okay, so there you go. Okay, you're spending 8 hours a day.
Yeah. You gotta kind of, you don't have to be best friends with everybody, but you gotta tolerate and or like most of the people you work with.
Yeah. Okay. I agree. And anybody who says it's not true. And then another thing is, I think you've said this before. If it's a small office, it's one thing. If it's a big company and you're far removed from that person, who cares? Okay. Who cares? Okay. Let me see. What about this? Nick Livingston said, and somebody else said as well, that it's a mistake not to get in touch with, if you're having trouble on a search and it's taking you quite a while to find any reasonable candidates, don't go silent. You're waving at me?
No, I mean, yeah, that happens to me a lot. Don't go silent to the client. Of course. Yeah, you have to keep the client updated. Like, hey, this is killing us. I don't know what we're going to do.
Well, how long does it take for you to get back to them? And do you come with data? And do you say, look, I've approached...
That's a very open-ended question because it depends on the search, right? Like I do a lot of search for structural engineers. They know how hard it is. So I just kind of, hey, we've called this many people. Things aren't going the way we thought to. We're going to change gears. Okay, right? But on a sales search, if you don't, you can't turn that around in a week, you better be back to them telling them what the problem is. Like I did this branch manager position. You guys aren't paying enough. Every single person you asked us to reach out to is making more than you're willing to pay. What do you want us to do? So we switched it to find us an inside sales guy who's got leadership experience and we'll train him. Right.
Okay,
so go ahead.
You're claiming, though, that when there is a difficulty, there's a problem with the job that has to be addressed.
Not always. It's not always, right? So when you say is there a problem with the job, it could be anything from location to just the industry itself, very candidate-driven market, like say geotechnical engineers. There's nothing wrong other than the fact that everybody needs them. Nobody wants to make job changes. That's not a problem with the job. It's just a problem with the industry as a whole. But on a sales position, right, that you should be able to fill because it's good, you think it's a good salary or a good position, and you start calling people and realizing, wait a second, hey, guys, you're not going to get anybody in a branch manager for $90,000. You're going to have to jump to 110 to 120. And you can tell them that and then say, our choices are raising the salary or lowering the specs. And that's a particular
How does that usually pan out? Because I find they're not very flexible, okay?
I mean, they lowered the specs. They went from, okay, fine, find us an inside
in that case, but in general, do you find that the hiring manager, now, see, you said right away, you said, look, they know how hard it is, okay? That's not always the case. Lots of hiring managers don't know how hard it is. That's why you want to stay in touch with them. Otherwise,
that's why you fire, if you can't, you're supposed to be an expert. You're supposed to be a consultant. You understand your market. If you can't convey that to a hiring authority and he does not believe you, then you're probably working with the wrong company. And I'll give you an example. One of the companies
Let me give you an example first. Let me break. Nick said the problem is you bring in one great person and the hiring manager doesn't realize what you've done to find that person. Oh, bring in a few more. They have to know that you've looked at 50 people, okay?
You did not qualify the job properly and explain your process to the client. That's on the recruiter.
Okay, so now I can't even remember what you were saying when I interrupted you. I hope you can.
So what I was going to say was, I had a client who started with, this was 10 years ago. We only want these type of structural engineers with this type of experience, and then we slowly lowered that down because we realized that they didn't exist, right? So now, due to me being able to be the expert in the industry and coming to them and saying, here are the issues, they've said, okay, well, let's do this then, let's do that. And we could come to an agreement on what the qualifications, the minimum qualifications lowered, right? And allowed them to hire more people, right? When you realize that, what you're asking for is not going to work, you're able to do it. Now, to get back to the other guys thing, when you sit down and do a job intake, brand new client, if you are not explaining to them how in-depth your process is, that when you bring them a person, it is going to be after you have contacted hundreds of thousands of millions or whatever it is, people, and that you've been doing this for 26 years. And and if I bring you a person, there is, yes, we want to move forward and hire him, or no, he's not good for our company. And let's move on and see if we can find someone else. Those are the only two answers.
No, you're wrong, because that's not the process. If the thing is, especially in a difficult market like you just explained, if you find one good person and that person is a fit, it doesn't mean that you might have got lucky. You didn't have to talk to 500 people to get that person. They should be ready to move on that person now. Okay.
That's what I said. That's what I said.
Even no, you said they should know that you looked at 500 people. You might have only called 10 people.
Any person I bring them, it's either a yes or a no. That's it. There is no in between. They're either yes, we're going to move forward and hire them, put them through the process, or no.
But what if they say to you then, look, you've only had the job for 2 days. You could bring in 3 or 4 people. I mean, stay with it a little longer. I don't have to hire the first person you find.
There's always someone better. So the chances, here's what's going to happen. They're either going to lose this guy and us maybe not find someone else, or you're going to hire this guy. End of story. Right? I mean, I don't know what to tell you, Mr. Employer. I've been doing this for as long as I can, and I may pull out the Picasso story, right? You're not paying me $25,000 for 2 minutes of work or 1 day of work. You're paying me $25,000 for 26 years of me doing this and knowing how to find you the best candidate for your company.
Okay, and the expertise you're bringing in this case is this person can do the job. There might be somebody better, but don't gamble on it. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I mean, we could gamble on it, but we're not going to tell this guy, hey, wait around. Right? And again, I'm talking from my point of view. I'm stone cold recruiting a candidate. I call John Smith and tell him about how great and wonderful the animal show is, and he's excited. He's not looking, but he wants to make a job change. And you interview him, and he's a good fit. But you say, you know what? It's only been a week. I need to see more people. Well, okay, I'll tell him you're not interested. No. Keep him on the hook. I'm not doing that. That's not how this game works. He doesn't stay on the hook.
Okay,
either he's
I used to do a lot of work with a name brand retained search firm, right? And so when I got 3 good candidates for them, then the client-facing recruiter would go in and make the presentation. We always had to have.
You're talking about retained. That's a different. You didn't say that right now. When a retained is different.
Actually, the point, the fact that it was retained or not really is not relevant. The point is that we had 3 people, and if the first candidate was for some reason would not accept the offer, they would have to promote the recruiter who was the partner or whatever would have to get them to take the second choice. Okay, what you're saying is no, don't forget about your second choice. You're saying let this person go. Cut them out, tell them there's it's all finished. You're not ever thinking that you might have to go back to this person and say, look, they decided to come back to you, right?
I mean,
is that what you just said? Cut this guy loose?
Yeah, it's to do with me. I guess when it comes down to it, and I know I'm not trying to come off egotistical and arrogant, man, but yeah, you hire this guy or don't. End of story.
No, they might not. They might say, look, you know what? He's got 80%. We want someone with 90%. Okay. And so you say, okay, I'm going to tell him that.
And if I don't find somebody with 90%, what do you want to do? Oh, we'll hire him then. Then hire him today. Because the chances of me finding somebody with 90%.
Chance, and then we'll come back to him. And then
No, it doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way. If he's good enough to hire, if we don't find a 90% guy, then he's good enough to hire today.
Yeah, I don't follow that. I don't understand why.
I don't care that you don't follow it, Mr. Employer. Okay, you asked me to find you someone to fill this position. This guy fills this position. I've worked this market. I've been doing this for a very long time. The chances of us finding somebody like this next week or in 2 weeks is slim. We might. Are you willing to chance that we don't find anybody else and then this guy is not available in 2 weeks? And then your job's open for 2 more months. Can this guy do the job? Does he fit everything you're looking for him to do? Can he do the job? Is he worth paying me $25,000 for today? Is he worth paying me $25,000 for in 2 weeks if we can't find you anybody else?
Okay, now you explained it. That's your.
Help me understand this because
no, I've done it too, but only after an extensive search, and I found somebody who those kind of people were so hard to find at the time, and the person was going to be in Toronto at a certain date, and these guys say, "Oh, we're not free to. All three of us have to interview, and we can't all be there that date." I said, "She's living in Vancouver." Okay, this was before it was popular to have remote conversations for interviews. I said, she's going to be here one day. She said, "It's against our rules," and it was a big government organization. They couldn't break the rules. But what happened was they did hire her a few months later when she was still available and she was coming back to town. But they will be foolish. There was nobody else, I don't think, in this country who was available to do that job. People are dumb, okay?
Yeah, I mean, and that's what you run into a lot is.
But I knew in that case that I couldn't. I had talked to everybody. I knew that she was the one.
And that might be the case where you go to her and say, "Look, it's a big company. They have big company rules. There's nothing I can do. If you're willing to wait around for 2 months, we could probably get you in the door." And I may do that. Like, if this guy's such a big asshole and says, "I need 2 more weeks," I may go back to the candidate and go, like, "Are you interested in this job yet?" "Well, it's probably going to be elongated for 2 more weeks. Are you willing to wait around for that?" "Yes, I am." "Okay, great." So then I'll pretend I'm doing the search. I'll call the client, say, "Hey, we've been doing it. We got anybody? Here's a list of people we talked to." Another week goes by. "I don't know what you want me to do. I can call back Steve, see if he's interested. What do you think?" "Oh, yeah, call him back." Like, that's probably what I would do in that case.
Okay. Which is a follow-up question for me. It reminded me of a case. Have you ever had a case where they actually make the offer, the person turns them down after a number of interviews, their first choice, and they up the salary? They say, "Look, we really want you. We're going to..."
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I mean, not very often, but yeah, I've had that. In fact, one of the deals we were working on, I just got paid on it. It was round and round and round, going back and forth and raising and changing and raising and changing and raising and changing till we got to a point that both sides were happy. It was, I've never worked harder for a lower fee in my entire life.
Okay, but in fact, this person, they had given you a target salary, and this person was actually hired for more than that.
They ended up paying this guy $145,000. They didn't want to go above 120. They started at 120. We ended up getting to 140 with a car allowance and a couple other things. But it took 6 weeks from the initial first offer till we closed it.
Yeah, the thing is, that only really happened to me once, a senior job, and the guy was very junior. At first, when I presented the candidate to my partner in the search, the senior partner, he said, "This person's too young." I said, "This guy is fantastic. Okay, you have to meet him." And then once he met him, he was sold on him. But the thing is, remember I told you about that article? The guy said, "I want to be able to get excited by the person." It was like a visceral. I knew that. Like, I wasn't an expert in this guy's field. He had a decent resume, but I knew just from talking to him that this was a great candidate. Now, some people would say that's impression management. You're basing it on someone who's good in an interview as opposed to someone who can do the job. I don't know, but I based on the resume, this person could also do the job, but also had a dazzling effect on anybody who spoke to him. Okay, that's
and that's you made me think of something. I've had issues where I've brought a candidate who was a rock star, and they couldn't close them. And then I wasn't able to find anybody as good as that candidate for the next, like, he did such a great job and was such a perfect fit, but they couldn't close him, that every candidate after that never what's the word I'm looking for?
They never got excited about anybody.
Was up to their expectations. Yeah.
Yeah.
I still remember the guy's name was Chris Wessel. He was a structural engineer. It was with a company called Metal Sales in Sellersburg, Indiana, for an engineering manager job. They interviewed him, and they friggin' this was so long ago, too. This is back before when I was at the old firm. And they loved this guy. I mean, they threw everything but the kitchen sink at to get him, and they couldn't. And every candidate after that was a no-go. I mean, I must have gotten 3 or 4 more people after that, and they just said, "Well, he's just not as good as Chris. He's just not as good as Chris."
Okay. See, but that's the thing with this guy. When this guy finally turned down the position, my partner had to get the second choice out of the 3. The second had to talk that guy into. He knew that they preferred somebody else, but he had to be massaged into accept. He liked the job, but I mean, he was the second choice. He could do it, but he wasn't the, as you said, rock
Well, at
star.
least the client was willing to take the second choice.
Yeah.
My client was not. I never filled that position with them. I still remember that.
Who
It
did
was-
eventually? Do you know? Did you ever check back? to see?
That's a really weird company. So they did hiring a guy named David Sturmer, like
Don't tell
3
you
years,
shouldn't mention. You shouldn't mention those names.
2 years later, and he
2
was
years
nowhere near
later.
as good as
2 years later, how did they
Yeah.
operate without
Because
anybody?
They didn't need to have an engineering manager. They wanted one. And again, it's a very strange company. They've been through 3 vice presidents in the last, I don't know, 2 years, right? It's family owned. They own the biggest taxi cab company in the city. So that's where they make all their money. And then they own the largest metal roofing company in the United States that could be the biggest powerhouse in the world if it wasn't run by a bunch of psychotic people.
Wow,
So
you shouldn't say this stuff here, okay? I
don't care. What are they going to do? Sue me?
yeah.
Everything it's not. What I'm saying is not untrue. And remember, I'm not in Canada. I'm in the United States, so we can say shit like that.
Really? Can you? I don't think so.
It's not slander. I'm not being
Called him
slanderous.
psychotic. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you fire a guy, right, and don't tell his sales manager while he's on vacation, and then send your other sales manager to meet the guy at a restaurant, don't tell the guy you fired him yet. When you get to the restaurant, you're like, hey, how are things going? You know, the sales guy, oh, not too bad. Do you have your keys, your company car? It's like, yeah, they're right here. Just thanks, you're fired. And walk out of the restaurant and drive away in the guy's company car and leave him sitting in the restaurant.
I think that's psychopathic rather than
Thank you.
psychotic. Really, that is cruel.
And that is a 100% true story that was told to me by the VP of sales who had left because of that.
Okay, but one of
Because
the
they
other
did.
reasons you didn't fill that position obviously was that they weren't desperate for an engineering manager.
Yeah. I mean, well, and they were so like the Mackins were so picky that once they met somebody like Wessel, they wanted another Wessel. And I just couldn't find him because of the location. And then they like decided they wanted the guy to work on Saturdays, and that ended up making it real difficult, right? When you told people they had to work 6 days a week. So, and again, I'm one of those. This was back contingency days, like 5 years of my career, 6 years of my career. Yeah, I worked on it, got a couple more people, and then I moved on, right? I didn't even care at that point.
Okay, well, that sounds like it was a wise decision. 5 people.
For contingency, it was like you tested the job order, 1, 2 send outs, they didn't hire somebody, you moved on. Right? You were just, it was a 4-to-1. Like you had to have 4 contingency searches knowing you were going to get 1 placement. 5 contingency searches, 1 placement. Like it was a really transactional business back then.
What about this? I saw a guy recommend, I don't know how serious he was, about to get retained searches, you're asking them to give you a benefit. So give them a benefit, give them a decent deduction in your fee.
I mean, I give a longer warranty on my fee, and if somebody wants to work contingency, it's always 30% now. So yeah, engaged is 25. And
really?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay. So you do that.
Contingency is 30, engaged is 25. It's $3 to $5 grand up front. And here's one thing you may find interesting: if I bring you a list of 40 people, I will, even if the second person I call is a rock star, I still will make sure my team calls all 40 people. That's what you get. You get that as part of the whole search, right? It's a search process. It's not just let's find you a guy and make a placement. That's contingency.
That contradicts what you told us. If I find you a guy who can do this job.
No. And again, that's why I said it's different with engaged. It's different with retained. I'm not, and I'll give you an example. When my client in Houston hired an engineering manager, he was the 3rd guy I talked to. I sent him the candidate. I said, look, here, this guy's perfect. I know you're going to hire him. We're still going to go through and see if we can find anybody else. I told my team, hey, we got 26 names left. Make sure you present them and let me know. And then 2 more guys said they were interested. I sent the resumes to the client, said, hey, both these guys are interested, but they're nowhere near as good as Anthony. And he said, hey, no, we're going to hire Anthony. Don't even worry about it. He said, we're done. We're going to hire Anthony. And then I remember him calling me. He's the president of the company. He says, Tom, I want to tell you something. He says, I was so impressed that you got us Anthony, and he was a rock star. He didn't say rock star. He was a perfect fit for a company every way, but then you still sent me more people. Like you did more than any recruiter we've ever used before. And that's why we use you, because you really went above and beyond. And I knew they were going to hire Anthony, right? And they paid me $5,000 plus 25%, right? So, and they paid him 160. So what is that? 40 grand, like $45,000. So I didn't mind telling my team, hey, make sure you finish these 25 calls. This is different than the guy that says, let me see more people. It's a different relationship.
It is. No,
he didn't say,
he did not
say, let me see more people. I knew that they had already started him in the process. Anthony was already being interviewed. They were flying him in the whole 9 yards, right? That was already happening. So it was me that was going to make sure that I did what I said I was going to do from the very beginning.
You said also, when I get a list of 40 people, were you saying that you show your client the list?
Yeah.
With all the names and everything on it? They could
names, title, and company they work for.
And you leave it, and they have that in their possession afterwards? You have to go?
Yeah, in fact, what I do is I tell them to look at the list. I want you to redline anybody that you've interviewed before, slept with your wife, yada, yada, yada. I want you to circle any companies that you're like would love to have them, like, oh my God, we'd love to hire somebody from that company. That would be a great, and circle candidates that you may know of by name. And let me see if I can find you one. And then once they've done all that, right, I then know from that list of, let's say it's 40 people, and they redline 2 companies. They, don't contact anybody from these 2 companies because we're in talks to buy them or whatever. And then also, hey, we would love this guy or anybody from these 3 companies. That then I can tell my team, hey, this is who I want you to call first, and make sure you don't call these guys or whatever it is. And again, this goes back to when I talk about how we are looking for clients who want to partner with us for long-term relationships. So I don't have a problem with giving them a list of all the people we're going to call.
But that list, they can use it themselves a year from now, and they don't have to call you.
They could, but they don't.
Why?
That's the relationship I'm looking for.
Lacrosse? Because you spoke to them about lacrosse or football?
No, it's because of the relationship.
Or you don't know anything about?
It's not contingency, right? It's not one and done. These companies are using our firm because they know we fill their positions, and there's a respect or whatever it is. I mean, I've had companies call me and say, hey, in fact, I just had one. The guy said, hey, I got to follow up with him, actually. This guy called us back 7 months later. Can you see what his deal is? That's what they get, right? So and again, I don't do it for this low level, engineers, right? So if we're going to call engineers and they're engaged searches too, it's a different thing. They're like, they know what I'm going to do. I just go out and attack and find the engineers they want, right? But for these level of searches, CFOs, sales managers, VP of sales.
A wrap-up question. Well, it's 1 o'clock. We'll end the show. But you said, okay, I've got Anthony, who they love and is a fantastic candidate, and I would hire myself if I was them. But I'm going to have my team call 40 more people. What if they find somebody? What are they going to say to those potential candidates? Look, we've already got a great candidate.
No. He's in the process, right? So what if there was someone that was better than Anthony? I don't think there was. Well, let's say there was. Let's just say they called John Smith, and John Smith was head and shoulders. I would go back to the client and say, look, I know you guys like Anthony. You got to interview John Smith. I think he's a better fit, and these are the reasons why. Right? But we didn't find that. We found 2 more people who said they were interested. I sent resumes or data sheets, because we didn't have resumes on the guys, to the client. I said, hey, these 2 other guys, well, actually, one was a guy, one was a girl, expressed interest, but I don't think they're better fits than Anthony. And that's when Joel said, hey, don't worry about it. We're
okay. But this woman and man, the second and third candidates, they don't know that there's a great candidate in there already. They think they're real contenders. Is that right? And they're not.
Again, we are recruiting passive candidates who are working. So you call them back and say, hey, it ends up that we found a candidate they like just a little bit better, so they're not even going to move forward in any more interviews. Thank you for your time. If we have anything else, I'll give you a call.
Okay. The other thing is, though, I guess my final mention that I've never got used to, I would like to somehow tell candidates in advance that, yeah, I want to be their friend. I want to help them, but I'm also bringing in their competition. Okay. Just like you just said, you're bringing in candidates
Good
You want
candidates
to
ask
relate
me.
to as a buddy.
Good candidates ask me, how many candidates are there in the process? You and one other guy. Where do I rank? Do you want me to be honest with you? You rank number 2. But the other guy's making way more money than you, so you have a much better chance if they can't get to the compensation range or whatever it may be. I will tell them if they ask. Look, that's part about being a friend is being honest, right? So if I made a good relationship with them, if they get mad at me because there's another candidate, dude, I don't know what to tell you. I don't work for you. You're not paying me. The client's paying me. I'm trying to find the best candidate, and you're good. But I want to be honest with you. There is a guy who's better. He's got 7 more years experience in his PE. You're an EIT. However, you're less money, and I think you're better in personality-wise. He might be a little nerdy, so you might get it. But I'm just letting you know where we sit.
Bye, everybody. Thank you, Tom. Tommy, I was going to have to do a monologue for the whole show. Yeah.